Why did the chicken cross the road?
Why?
That's a good fucking question, though, isn't it? It's not really a joke. Just it's something to think about. Hey guys, welcome back to the Arthritis Podcast, official podcast of Digital and Creative Media Works, where each week we take something from pop culture and try to break it down to better understand it. My name is David.
My name is Ben.
And this week, you don't seem very excited.
No, I'm not really. Well, I'm excited.
You seemed a bit cold just then. You were like, maybe I'm not into it.
I'm excited, but it's a weird one.
It's going to be an interesting one because this week, we're continuing Fantasy Month. We had a good run last week.
Yeah, so in the continuation of fantasy.
With Bright, which was, that was tough to watch. So
yeah,
this
that was
week,
a rough one.
We thought what we'd try and do is talk about something that is fantasy adjacent and explain why it really should be something that it isn't, and that basically Steven Moffat's a fucking raving lunatic, because this week we are talking about the fantasy of Doctor Who. Wait, that's X-Files. How does Doctor Who go?
Similarly.
It's very similar, but it has a drum beat in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, you finally watched Doctor Who. It's only taken you most of your life.
Yeah, I'm up to, I'd say halfway through Moffat, I think.
Right. Halfway through Moffat.
A decent way through Moffat.
So,
not Moffat. Capaldi. That's what I meant to say. We're nearly finished Moffat.
So you've been with Moffat for all of the bad stuff.
We've gone through, we're partly through Capaldi's.
Because season 5 starts fine and then gets worse, and then
You're
after
gonna have
that,
to remind me what half of these seasons are.
Season 5 is Matt Smith's first season.
Okay.
And it starts okay with the crack in the wall stuff. It's a bit conceited, and then it ends badly.
I didn't like...
Season 6 is dog shit, and then season 7 is dog shit, and season 8 is dog shit, and season 9 is dog shit.
So what would I be up to? I
think you're like season 8 or 9.
I think 8 we're up to. We finished 7.
Well, Capaldi's first season is season
7.
No, 8.
8?
Yeah. Because season 7 is Matt Smith's last season, and that's when Matt Smith and Clara have a handful of episodes together, and they're the best episodes of that show that have been in a long time.
And then
since Russell T Davies.
And then I don't mind Clara.
Clara's a great companion.
Let's not review every season.
Let's not. Hey, listen, we're doing an episode by episode Doctor Who analysis. We're gonna be here for 27 hours, and you're gonna love every second of it.
Episode 1, it's a good one.
It's a great. Episode 2, it's also a good one.
Actually, the whole first season.
It's good. Well, no, that's kind of what I wanted to touch on. So the reason the first season works really well is it doesn't take itself too seriously.
It's a
dark ass show, but it's never hits the plot. Russell T Davies is never guys, there's a grand plot, and at the end of the season, you're gonna find out what it's all been about. You're gonna get the reward.
It's not Sherlock.
No, it's not. It's not dog shit bad Sherlock, where it's Steven Moffat promising some big grand outcome, but then you get to the big grand outcome, and he goes, "Hey, listen,
just kind of shit,
guys. You'll find out next season what it's all about. Next season, what it's all about." And Doctor Who, for instance, at the end of season 5. There's a crack. Where did the cracks in the universe come from? It was a TARDIS exploding. Why did the TARDIS explode? Well, it was the silence. What are the silence? I don't know. Tune in next season. Oh, the silence are these aliens that make you forget where you're looking. Who sent them? Why did they cause the crack in the TARDIS? At the end of the season, it's gee, I don't know, but find out. Come back next season. So they're a religion. Come back next season to find out what they're all about.
So coming from...
I wasn't done. Then season 7, it's the silence will fall and the question is asked. What's the question? I don't know. Tune in by the end of the season to find out what's the question.
It's the answer to the doctor's name.
It's the doctor's name.
Doctor Who. That's the question.
What's the doctor's name?
Get it?
Don't know. Tune in next season to find out. Fucking idiots.
Have they... They've never actually...
No, because it's a dumb premise.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane. It's what's his name? Gee, I don't know. Is that not the...
Is it Frank?
That couldn't be further from the central premise of the show. Steven Moffat is so fucking obsessed with making the Doctor into the main hero character of the show that he completely fucking forgot what the show's about, which is about the companions being good people and the Doctor being kind of this aloof mess. And I'm fucking sick of Steven Moffat writing the way that he does, pretending that he's got something to say when ultimately he's had literally 3 ideas. One of them is the Weeping Angels. Another one is a very complicated episode where a bunch of people die and then they come back at the end. And then the final one is underwater ghosts. And he's done that 5 times. And I'm just tired of seeing him do the same shit over and over and pretend that it's art. And can we just not? Can people stop hiring him? He's not done anything good since he did those episodes of Doctor Who, and those were only good because they had to be self-contained.
I think it's my perspective of Doctor Who, because I've only watched it last year, this year. Mm-hmm. I knew of the existence of the silence and the Daleks and all these things.
Yeah.
And and like the Weeping Angels.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so the first episode of Doctor Who I saw like recently, the first episode I saw like as a kid was the fucking Are You My Mummy
Oh, done.
gas mask,
That's
and
a
I
Stephen
was
Moffat.
done. Yeah, that was it.
That is a scary ass fucking
yeah,
idea.
I didn't watch Doctor Who after that.
That's
But like
fair.
the first one I sort of watched recently was the Weeping Angels episode because it's kind of standalone.
What, Blink?
Yeah, Blink.
Again, Steven Moffat.
And yeah, and I was like, dude, this is sick as
It's
fuck.
fucking balls to the wall. It's so good.
And I knew about things like the silence and like
Just peripherally.
yeah, like I understood like their gimmick as like aliens. Like I got like and like because you know as just adjacently you know even if you haven't seen Doctor
Via
Who you
osmosis.
know what a Weeping Angel
That's really
is,
unfortunate.
and you know like what the silence are.
Because, yeah, that's interesting. I guess my perspective is totally different because I grew up with Doctor Who. So all of that stuff when it happened was like, what the fuck? Like I saw the opening of season 6, so the episodes with the silence creatures in cinema with like 400 other people.
Yeah.
And it was the first time it had been shown in Australia. And it was like, yo, like the
Terrifying.
first time that someone looks away and goes, oh, and what are we talking about? You go, what the fuck? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, and you know, when Blink first came on, it was like the scariest shit.
Yeah.
By the way, the Blink and the silence are the
Oh,
same gimmick, just so you know it's looking in the direction. One of them is Slender Man, and the other one is literally like already something that exists in Star Trek. But it's fine. Stephen Moffat has great original
it's just
ideas.
They're reversed. The ones that look like Slender Man aren't Slender Man.
It's just like, come on, Steve, what are you
So,
doing?
yeah, like I already understood like the premise,
Mm-hmm.
like as the aliens, but like
Yeah, the broad strokes gimmick.
yeah, but Blink, like if you even if you understand the gimmick, Blink is an amazing episode.
It's incredible.
Like, Blink is like the cinematography is fucking insane. Like
It's wild.
the cuts that they do when someone like walks in front of the camera and like they'll change like in the background and stuff. Like there's all these subtle things
makes
where
me
it's
so
like
uncomfortable thinking
where
about
in
it.
universe it makes sense. Like
Yeah.
they'll move because they're not being looked at.
But they don't. It's not like telegraphed in a lot of the scenes. There's just statues that move in the background of scenes. You don't notice
you only
go
notice
back,
it if you know the gimmick,
which is
which
really
is even scarier.
Which again, with the first time
makes
you realize
rewatching
the first time you realize what's happening halfway through the episode, like you go, oh,
that whole time,
because then you remember you're like, there's angels in the oh shit,
Yeah.
like it's just this real like it's a twist because it's using the available information that you already had, and then you could have worked out that the angels were these creatures that were statue that were moving. That's a great twist, and it's terrifying when you realize what they are. And they go into that scene in the basement at the end of that episode is horrifying.
Yeah.
When the lights swinging and going out and shit.
Yeah.
And the TARDIS starts to disappear, and you're like, no, fuck. It's scary as shit. And that's what Steven Moffat does really well.
But the silence, like knowing the gimmick of the silence, it's not as good an episode.
Well, it's
Like,
also, yeah,
I think part of it is
the fact they can shoot lightning from their fingers is dumb. What was that about?
I forgot they could do
Because
that.
that's not something
to
that
be
they
fair,
should.
the Weeping Angels send you back in time.
But you don't see it happening. Like, it's off screen. There's a cut, and then you're back in time. They
Yeah,
don't open
right.
a wormhole
They
in
don't
front of you.
they don't Jedi light.
Yeah,
they don't
like
force lightning
what would
you.
be really cool is if like here's what they should have done with the silence, and Stevie Moffat would have been copying himself, which he's very good at doing. So when someone's looking at the silence and they kill them, someone else, the way that you show them getting killed is someone else looks back and that person is gone and they've forgotten about them.
Yeah.
That'd be fucking like you'd be like, where the fuck? Who? What? Like, you know, in that bathroom scene when Amy first meets, they're in the White House or whatever, and there's the silence in the bathroom, and she's sick, and there's an American woman, and she's like, is that a Star Trek mask? And then if Amy turned around and the woman was gone, and she's like, and she feels really upset, but she's not sure why. That'd be fucking wild. Why didn't they do that? Why big laser fingers? Was it because it was pitched at Americans? Those 2 episodes? Probably. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know where it comes from, where, like, Weeping Angels, like, that episode is so much better, even though, like, they're both sort of very iconic.
I think it's a transition that occurred when Doctor Who went from being very British to being pitched as like a high concept American sci-fi
So, I mean, all you have
adventure.
to do is look at the fucking opening for, like, season 4 and 5 to understand that, like, how Americanized it got.
It got
with the
really
fucking-
Americanized, where they explain the concept at the
Yeah,
start of
with
every episode.
the, what's her name openings.
The Amy Palmer, she explains
Yeah,
the
that
concept
made
or
me
whatever.
hate... that made me hate Amy as a
It sucks,
companion.
man. And the
I
weirdest
don't
thing...
hate her, but, like, fuck, I hate her because of those openings.
The strangest thing is they go back to that in season. They go back to the old way of doing it in season 7 with Clara's character, where they never explain anything about her until the very end when they ruin it. But like,
oh my fucking god! Oh my fucking god! Oh my fucking god! When they spoil it in the opening, they don't even let the episode run. They just
That's the worst.
Which is a shame. If you haven't seen the episode, you probably don't know what this is.
It's a shame because she's one of the best characters. And but they can't leave it at that. Then in season 8, they ruin her again. Are you up to that?
No. We got up to the. We got up to that episode where it reveals like her whole premise in like before even the credits roll.
Yeah, that's in season 7.
And we watched that, and I was like, "Guess I don't need to see the episode anymore." I just walked off. I was like, "No, I've seen it. They've just." It's so dumb. There was no build up.
The worst part about that is it comes off one of the best episodes of the show.
Oh, it does. It just starts.
Because
it's just like spoilers. You're like, I didn't need to see this.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because like I guess the reason. So the episode, the 50th anniversary episode of Doctor Who is one of the best of the show ever. Which is where David Tennant and Matt Smith bang about together.
That's the 3 with like all 3 of them.
3 Doctors. Yeah, it's really fucking good.
Well, that's Matt Smith, Tennant, and then
John Hurt.
Yeah, as like the war.
Yeah, and it's
war
really
Doctor?
War Doctor is War Doctor. Yeah,
no, isn't War Doctor?
It's John Hurt.
Isn't War Doctor what people call the first season Doctor? What's his name?
What you thinking of Christopher Eccleston? No,
yeah.
Christopher Eccleston was the Doctor after. No, the War Doctor is John Hurt.
Right.
And then
I know there's some weird stuff with the number.
And then
one of them is the War Doctor.
So that's John Hurt's character, and then Christopher Eccleston in season 1 is the 9th Doctor.
Yeah. Because they needed to fit it in.
But he's the 10th regeneration. Yeah. And then Matt Smith is now like he was like the 13th. But yeah, anyway, it doesn't matter. Numbers aren't important. But the reason that works really well is they understood what made the show good, which is
Matt Smith Part 2.
Yes,
because he regenerates into himself.
What I mean.
Because he's just a bit of a wanker.
And then also he uses some of his regeneration energy to heal River Song, which is apparently a thing you can just do now in Doctor Who.
I think we should get to that.
Yeah,
because I think that's the main part of what we kind of need to talk about.
My primary issue with what's happened to the show is it went from something that was both a fantasy and kind of a fairy tale genre, and the framing device is sci-fi, but the genre conventions aren't sci-fi conventions. The Doctor does stuff that doesn't need to be explained, and things in the universe.
It's no Star Trek. In
season 1, there's an episode where people have holes in their head that let them jack data in through this energy stream. And at no point does someone sit down and go, well, this is how that works. You just see how it works and you intuit it and you don't need an explanation. That borrows from that like fairy tale genre kind of thing where no one ever goes, well, Little Red Riding Hood could never like fight off the big bad wolf. Like wolves can't talk. Like no one ever thinks that when they talk about fairy tale. So in the same way, Doctor Who, no one is sitting there going, but how does the big energy beam thing put energy into that knowledge into their brain?
Just energy.
It just works. It just does. Hey, how does the TARDIS travel through time and space? It just does, dog. And that stuff is fun and cool. And when you get little allusions to how it works, like there's a great episode in season 6 or 7 rather, season 7 with Clara and Matt Smith where they go inside the TARDIS and they go into this like timeless shard room where like it's like a frozen moment of something or other, and they go through like the sun that is fueling the engine, and they never explain how all of it works, but you go, this is a fucking complex machine. That's kind of buck wild. Whereas later on, Steven Moffat has this really bad habit of being like, and he'll go, here's a plot setup, and I'm going to explain every single thing about it as it happens, so you never have to worry about thinking ever again.
Well, even just the annoying kind of inconsistencies where the show will like it'll give itself a rule in one of the episodes for like the convenience of the plot. The big one being like the fixed points and times. Things like, why not just go back and kill Hitler? And he's like, well, it's a fixed point. We can't kill Hitler.
Exactly.
Or like, why not let you die? Like, why not prevent your death?
They even do that in season 1 with Rosa's dad, where she goes back and she tries to save him from dying, and it creates a literal time paradox, and time demons come and try and kill them. And that's like a cool rule.
Yeah. And they, they're just like, he has to, like, this is a fixed point. Your dad has to die. And she's like, okay, bloody, that gets resolved. And so you have this idea of like, they've created a rule in a fantasy universe, which like generally when you have like, if you have like sci-fi, which is like usually sci-fi tries to be more like science fiction.
Yeah.
Like, so stuff like Star Trek is like more sci-fi. Stuff like Star Wars is kind of science fantasy, fantasy.
Yeah, it's even more on the side of being like a space opera fantasy.
Yeah, so like sci-fi as a narrative, or I guess
it's more of a framing device. Like it's an external genre. It's not necessarily
Yeah,
informing
it
plot.
more informs like the setting.
It's the
and,
window.
like,
It's
what
the
people
window
can do.
dressing. Yeah. It's which powers and what does it all look like, and
So
how to talk.
when a fantasy series creates like a rule like that, you kind of like you take it as a rule like in the world, either
Right.
like as like a physical rule, something that can't be broken, or as like even just a thematic rule.
that there'll be consequences.
Yeah,
Like in Harry Potter, you can't operate in Hogwarts, and no one is ever like, well, why can Dumbledore operate in Hogwarts? Like, you work out the rules as you go, kind of thing. Whereas I feel like one of the biggest problems with Doctor Who is they'll set up all of those rules, and then for the convenience of one episode, they'll just kind of disregard them entirely, and then try and write around it in a really lazy way that makes no sense.
And like that's fine if you have like that works. Like breaking a rule that you've established works. It really, and like in the way that Doctor Who does, really only works if the rule is really well defined, and the way around the rule is the way that they've gotten around it is also really well defined.
Yes.
And it's less of a convenience and more of like a really clever thing.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
you
like,
go,
oh,
oh.
that's a really smart loophole.
And then there's always some kind of, there's either a consequence or there was a cost to doing it.
It was like a major problem. Yeah.
Instead of what they kind of get into the habit of doing, like there's an episode in one of the Doctor Who episodes that is coming up for you where someone is trying to steal the Doctor's regenerations, and there's a device that is constructed that can extract them from him.
Sure.
And that's the way that they justify that is they have an episode where that happens, and then Steven Moffat retroactively in a later episode writes in a machine that can bestow regenerations into people, such that Time Lords aren't born, they're made, which is really weird and dumb, because then the Doctor having only 13 regenerations is immediately disregarded, because it was what he was trying to fix that season, because he knew it was coming up.
Yeah.
So rather than just go, he's fine, that rule's bullshit, it doesn't exist, he was like, well, how do I write around this? What if I made a machine that gave people regenerations and then rewrote the entire history of Doctor Who at the same time? And that's what he did. And then at the same time rewrote the whole history of the Daleks. After having rewritten the entire history of Doctor Who a few seasons prior with Clara. Like, he just can't actually write a good story, so he has to keep retroactively trying to like fix these rules that he's made that he decides he doesn't want anymore.
Yeah, that's like you mentioned the Daleks. The Daleks are my favorite villain in Doctor Who. Like, I love the Daleks. I think they're hilarious. Like, their motivations are so just like believable.
They're real good.
Yeah, like I ever since like the first Dalek in like season 1, which is like
Such a good episode.
like yeah, one of the like that as an introduction to the Daleks is amazing.
It's incredible
Because it both
you learn so
characterizes the Eccleston's Doctor as being like a bit of a psycho, and the Daleks is also being mostly a bit crazy.
And you learn in that episode that the Daleks for the Doctor are something that will make him do things he wouldn't normally.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about that episode is he's confronted by that in the episode. It's not, oh, he'll learn from it later. Like, literally in the episode, Rose is like, well, you'll have to shoot me if you're gonna kill it. He's got this giant gun. She's like, what does this make you? And he's like, oh, fuck. Like, you get to see him change and grow in that episode as a result of
the
what's
best
occurred.
line in all of Doctor Who, you would make a good Dalek.
Which Steven Moffat fucking
Oh,
copies
yeah, he does.
and completely misses the point of why it was a good line.
Yeah.
So he literally copies the exact same line in season 7, where the Doctor goes inside a Dalek, right? He goes into the Dalek, and I think he goes into the Dalek's mind for some reason. And
they like don't they they get shrunk?
yeah, they shrink and then they go into it. But him and the Dalek meld minds at some point.
Yeah, I wasn't really paying attention to that episode.
But and the justification in the episode is that the Doctor in that episode is willing to sacrifice people's lives to fix this Dalek, to have this Dalek kill other Daleks.
Yeah.
That's what he's trying to do. That's his mission, right? And so the show in that episode, the show's justification for him being called, well, you would make a good Dalek, is that what he tries to do is bridge minds with the Dalek to show it the wonders of the universe. But what it finds within him is also his hatred for the Daleks. And so then that Dalek hates all other Daleks, which is kind of a win, because that's what they were going for. The problem is that's the outcome that he wanted. So the line isn't impactful, because you go, yeah, that was what he was trying to do.
It's like, yeah.
So it doesn't work. It'd be like if in that Eccleston episode, the Dalek was like, you would make a good soldier. You'd be like, yeah, like, of course. Like, it's the same.
You would do well in a time war.
you would do well if you were locked underground with a Dalek. It's like, yeah, I know, that's what we're trying to do. Like, it doesn't have any of the impact because Moffat misunderstood what made the first thing interesting. And I think that's a safe, sweeping characterization of a lot of when he brings stuff back in. So, like, you know, and this hasn't happened for you yet, but he brings in all these concepts from, like, you know, the fourth and third Doctor and tries to kind of reuse them in a new setting. And he actually at one point completely rewrites the Daleks' history and pretends that it had always been that way. It's fucking weird. Like, he does that kind of thing all the time because he just has run out of ideas. Made worse by the fact that in the latest Christmas special, literally the whole episode has no plot. And I'm not exaggerating. There isn't a story. Like, there's time freezes in certain places. The Doctor ends up on a planet that is the database at the center of the universe. There's a Dalek on it.
Oh, surprise.
He goes there, and the episode's over.
Yeah, so that's like that's the thing with, like, Daleks. Like, I originally really liked them, but they're like,
he beat them into the ground.
They've through just, like, you know, multiple season finales involving them to the point where it would kind of get predictable. It was more
unless you do something
fun
with them.
Yeah, it was more I think that the fun Dalek episodes are the ones where, like, for the first half there's just, like, stuff happening. Yeah. And then one just enters the room and says, like, "Hello, Doctor." You're like, oh, what is he doing here?
Dude, the ones with Tennant where, like, where there's, like, those ghost phase things, you know, like, ghosts appear in London everywhere.
Yeah.
And it turns out to be Cybermen.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's fucking nutty. And then, like, you know, Doctor's like, well, this is all bad news because this shouldn't be happening. Yeah. And then a fucking Dalek rolls up. You're like, oh, shit got real. Like, it's cool. It's exciting.
My favorite time, especially like when they use these, like, really notable villains, like, and this is kind of, like, contrasted to the Weeping Angels and the Silence, is when it's just like, it's like plot, suddenly Daleks. Or it's like stuff happening, you're like, oh, what's going on? Yep. Suddenly Cybermen.
Oh, dude, anytime there's like an elaborate plot happening, and then at the end, like, halfway through you realize it's like Cybermen the whole time, you're like, that's cool.
It's so much cooler than, like,
then just here's a dumb, like, the Daleks want to destroy this thing.
Or, like, here's a weird mangled, like, fixed, like, plot, like, fixed timeline. And even, like, the later the later Weeping Angel episodes and all of the Silence episodes, it's weird because they're, like, they start with, like, oh, there's silence in this episode. And it's never, like, halfway through it's like the realization that it was, you know, if later episodes, like, halfway through you realize that it's been the silence the whole time.
You'd be like, dude.
You'd be like, that's wild, but they never do that because they always got to milk the we've got lines on our arms.
I think it speaks to a level of Moffat's insecurity as a writer. Like, and we talked about this when we did our Sherlock season 3 episode, but he's so insecure that people, like, and I don't know where it comes from, but he's so insecure that people aren't going to get it, or that they're going to think that it didn't make any sense because they didn't get it, that he's so unwilling to trust his audience in any way. So you can't have an episode where halfway through you realize it's the silence, because that wouldn't, like, he would be so afraid that you wouldn't get that it's going to be the silence, that when the reveal happens, you'd be like, why is it the silence? Like, he just so doesn't trust his work to stand by its own. He needs to show you what it's about.
If anything, like, I've had moments where it's like, why are the silence there? Because there's no
lead up.
There's no, like, big reveal of them. Like, a scene will just happen. There'll be a silence standing there. You're like, why?
Think about the reveal of, in season 4, the Forest of the Dead episode, where the Doctor and the Donna go to this planet that's a library. And it's dead empty. It's supposed to be, like, full of millions of people. And it's dead empty. And they go to a console and it says, you know, 3 billion life forms found, but no people. And he's like, what the fuck? That's weird. And they kind of bang around the place, and there's an evacuation order on this screen, and they go, well, we should get out of here. And he's like, yeah, we're not going to do that. So they kind of bang about, and it takes you a good, like, 15 to 20 minutes before, you know, you get the first reveal of he's walking about, and they meet River Song, and there's all these people, and there's all this stuff happening. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's also
stuff.
River's introduction, which is like,
and it's because it's not really the focus of the episode. And then about, like, 20 minutes in, he goes, oh, I know what this is. And you're like, what? And he, like, gets out a torch, and he's like, torching the shadows. He's like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And he's like, does anyone have any lunch? And you're like, what is happening? And he throws a drumstick into the shadows and it becomes bone instantly.
Yeah.
Because these creatures have eaten it. And you're like,
that's all you need.
You're like, fuck, dude.
That's
they're
all
in
you
the
need
shadows,
is-
dude.
yeah.
That's like crazy. You know, those kinds of reveals work so well because you're given time to start to be like, what could it be? Like, you know, what took all these people? Where would it come from? And then when you work out it was in the books the whole time.
In this crazy zany Doctor Who universe, what is it?
But you can work it out because you go, well, there's tons of books, and there was a forest that was cut down that had the Vashnarada in it, and this is their new forest, and that's why they're at the library. That's why no one's here. And then no one died because the Moon computer database uploaded everyone. Like all of that stuff you can work out as you go, but it's not told to you. Whereas Moffat's version of that is the ending of I think it's season 7, which is where Missy creates like an army of Cybermen or whatever from dead people. I don't know if you remember that or if that's happened. I think that's definitely happened.
I don't know.
It's the end of Capaldi's first season. And Missy has this thing. So when people die, she uploads them into this.
No,
cloud.
I'm currently in this season. Missy's like the one where they tease her at like the end of every
constantly.
episode. Yeah,
yes.
no, I'm still dealing
you're
with
in
that.
that.
Shit.
Okay.
I'm in that.
Well, the outcome of that season is badly executed because it tries to set it up really well, but the problem is the whole time you don't like it's got nothing to do with the story. It has nothing to do with anything else. Like the Bad Wolf stuff in season 1, the fact that a kid graffitis Bad Wolf on the side of the TARDIS in episode 3 ostensibly has nothing to do with the finale, but it takes nothing away from the episode you're watching.
Yeah.
Whereas every single script in season 7, Steven Moffat has decided that 5 minutes needs to be cut out of the story to deal with this Missy subplot.
Well, even like he was even doing that earlier with the fucking like river song being blah.
That conceited thing where it's her as a young person that shoots him and all that shit.
Like that whole like, you know, he did the same thing where like the end of, or I think the start of like every episode started with some confusing thing that wasn't revealed until the end of the episode, which
so unnecessary.
ended the season, which ended up ruining one of the characters anyway. So
yeah,
it's like,
so
okay,
dumb.
didn't actually want
and
that.
it was an alternate timeline anyway, so what was the fucking point? But like, I mean, I think it's because he got too much success from his first season where he had the cracks in the wall through time.
That was like just,
that was fine. Like, but that was fine because most episodes that was like maybe 10 seconds where you saw it.
Yeah, like I think in terms of sort of like build-ups, like that wasn't too bad because the first one, like the very first instance of it where it's just literally the crack in a wall, you're kind of just like, oh, it's a shitty house. And then it's like, but you know, as they sort of like keep repeating the crack here, then everywhere. And even like at some points, like in the middle of episodes where Dr. Boy will see it and be like, what is that?
There's a Weeping Edges one where he's like, yeah, they're in that room and he looks up, he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, and it's used as a device that is useful in standalone stories. Like that Weeping Angels one, he uses it to sort of suck them all in and defeat them. But it's not to do with the episode. Like, it's not... Sorry, it's not to do with the episode. Like, it's not like he did that and then it revealed something about the end plot.
It was just kind of a weird, another fantasy thing.
Yeah, it was just...
Science fantasy
just like,
thing.
It was like Gandalf doing a spell.
Gandalf coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, that's like a fun device, not, you know, Steven Moffat trying to write himself around the fact that...
Yeah, those Weeping Angels didn't appear in this season finale.
Because they didn't need
the same
to.
cracks.
Out of the same cracks. Because, oh my god, he totally would do that now.
He totally would.
Oh my god.
You'd be like, remember all the enemies that fell? Remember all the bad boys?
Now they're all here.
Now they're all here.
Dude, I would die. I know that fuck, he would totally do that now. That's like totally up his alley at this point. But no, I just think that when you're looking at like the way that you approach a genre, like you have to understand that there's conventions for a reason. This is something that I've talked about at length with a lot of people that come to me like, how do I do writing better? It's like, read stuff that you like and that you are writing in the same like genre of, and then try and find things that they all have in common. So like every thriller has a moment where the guy has the gun at the hero's head, like in James Bond, where he's like, "I've got you now, Mr. Bond. Prepare to die.
Expect you to die.
Expect you to die." And they explain their plot and
because
their world.
They do.
Yeah, they explain their plot and why they're doing it, and that's like every thriller has that because you need it. What makes it work, and people expect it because it's a thriller. And you don't necessarily have to literally do the thing with the guns to the head. You can do those required conventions in interesting, surprising ways, like Silence of the Lambs. That sequence where the guy has the gun to the head is actually where Clarice Starling is in the basement and it's dark, and she's being stalked by the guy who's got the night vision goggles. It's not the same scene, but it has the same function in the story. So when you're talking about genres and like why Stephen Moffat's writing is so shitty a lot of the time, it's he recognizes that genre exists because he'll do episodes that fall into like it's a detective story or it's a this story or whatever, but he fails consistently to observe why those stories work. The best example I can point to is an episode in season 4, which is one of my favorite episodes of Doctor Who of all time, which is Midnight. Also, by the way, season 4 might be the best season.
Season 4 is like
it's got Donna.
It's got Last Tenant.
Yeah, it's got Donna. It's got David Tennant just doing his best. It's got Midnight. It's got the library episodes, and it ends with John Barrowman getting back involved as Captain Jack. It's great. But yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that Midnight as an episode, that's where they get on the Doctor gets on the bus that's going across the Diamond Planet where they can't go outside. Don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
And there's this presence that comes inside the ship.
And
and the woman starts repeating it.
Oh, yeah,
that's the creepy
shit. That is like prime. That's also another like sort of like Blink-esque episode where it's just like...
It's incredible.
It doesn't... Yeah, like on a rewatch, you have a really good idea of like what is like happening,
but it doesn't make it less interesting.
It doesn't make it worse. It actually makes it better on a rewatch.
Whereas like
then you're able to like follow it and like really engage with like the progression.
Yeah, and you start to understand how it's unfolding. Whereas Moffat is so telegraphic in the way that he writes plot that when you go back to rewatch something after you get the twist, all you see is him trying to set up the twist instead of seeing why it's getting progressively more complicated.
Yeah.
So like with River Song's character, when you realize that she was the girl in the suit and that she's on the beach and she's not in control, that doesn't then recontextualize.
Yeah, that doesn't
previously
change
happened.
anything.
Doesn't make it more interesting to rewatch because
it's just like, oh look, it's River Song.
Yeah, instead of like the Midnight
it turns
thing,
it into a factoid rather than an interesting reason to rewatch. Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas like with Midnight, when you rewatch that, you can see what's starting to happen and you can see the paranoia and the way this, the repeating happens and the way it starts to latch on to David Tennant. And it's so... That episode is so fucking unsettling.
That episode.
It's one of the greatest.
That's a very good one.
And it has one of the best moments in Doctor Who of all time, which is halfway through when everything is going to shit, and Dee Dee, the assistant, the scientist assistant, reads a passage about the Goblin Men. We shall not look at Goblin Men. We shall not look at Goblin Men. And it makes it gives me goosebumps even just saying it now because it is so well done and it's not pretentious and it fits the scene perfectly. But Moffat's version of that is having the Doctor do some big speech about how he's incredible and he can solve the day instead of what you should do, which is have someone who's concerned about the situation express something genuine. It's not about the Doctor being a hero. It's like these people are in danger, and the thing that makes it interesting is that you learn about their tensions and what they're trying to overcome and why they're concerned and they're different in things they want and things they need. And at the end of the episode, you go, it makes sense that like they sit in silence on the way back and the Doctor isn't happy afterwards. Like, he didn't have a great victory. Whereas if it was a Moffat episode, the Doctor would swan out of the bus and be like, "I've bloody done it, Clara! What do you reckon?"
Oh,
and, it would be insufferable.
Like, them, like, going back reminds me a lot of, like, 12 Angry Men.
Mm-hmm.
Which is this really old black and white film, which is, I think, like, my favorite example of how you can just have a film that's entirely dialogue that's still, like, incredibly engaging. It's because it's a stage show. The gist of it is 12. It's set in like the 20s, and they're part of a jury, and they're trying to.
Yeah, they have to come to a consensus.
And it starts out as just one guy who thinks the kid's not guilty.
Yep.
And they all think he's guilty, and then it just
progressively
goes over. But there's one scene where one of the characters, who's like kind of like one of the last guys to convert, just starts going like a racist tirade. He just starts going on about, because the kid's like Latino or something. Yep. This guy just like starts going on, and like one by one, all of the characters they're all sitting at a table. They all just get up and walk off and just stand in the corner or just like leave. And he's just like sitting there, he's like, why? He's like, come on, guys. Like,
it's incredible.
And it's like, it's that kind of thing where it's just like, there's so much power in just like empty air and just like having characters like exist in the same space together. You as the viewer have been given all the information you need
to work out.
You just need to see them exist in the space.
It's amazing.
And it's loud. It's loud with complete silence.
Which is like, honestly, like,
and I wish he did more of that.
Because he can. Like we've like, as a writer, he can do that. But as a showrunner, he is incapable of doing that. And I think
as a writer, he's able to take an episode because that's all he gets given as a writer. It's just like, you have this one episode. So he's like, okay. So he takes the episode and he makes the episode.
Self-contained piece of
But he gets
story.
the show. Whoa, look at all this space. I can take one storyline that would be fine in an episode and stretch it out over 5 seasons. But then, look at me, I'm Steven Moffat.
Yeah. I'm made worse by the fact that he never seems to have worked out what the ending is. Like he never has an answer. If you ask someone like what the silence is, like, oh, it's a race, and it's good. They go, well, actually, it's a religion. Well, what's the religion doing? Well, it's trying to stop the Doctor from answering the question. What's the question? Well, it's Doctor Who. Well, what's the answer? Well, tune in next time to find out. You fucking
Well, it's
idiot.
like, what's the question? It's like Doctor Who's like, isn't that the name of the show? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's like, isn't that obnoxious as
Isn't
hell?
that the worst thing ever?
Isn't that really, really anticlimactic?
The answer, yes, it is.
Wouldn't it be way cooler if the question was like, why am I here? What am I doing? What's the point of it all? But no, Doctor Who.
Or like a better question to end that season would have been, who is Clara? Because that's been a question for like 2 seasons. You would have been like,
could have
anything else.
Even if you wanted it to be the same premise, just like that build up, like I like that episode where they reveal the question, the guy who's just the head. Even if he was just like, who are you?
Would have been better.
Would have been better, because like that is a sentence. Because like up to that point, we had been like, there are so many fucking Doctor Who,
Moffat does that all the time.
and like it's bigger on the inside jokes. Like every season has
Moffat
like
becomes
6 of
obsessed
them,
with it.
and it's like it turns that really like important moment into into another joke.
To be fair, Moffat does that well once, and so Moffat has one good episode that he's written when he was showrunner that is flawless back to front and is one of my favorite episodes of all time, and that's Snowman, which is Christmas special, and it's where you first meet Clara, and it's in like the Victorian era, and he's like retired. It's got some bad shit in it because it's got the lizard lady, and she expouts a bit about the Doctor. But aside from that, one of the best parts about that is when Clara first goes into the TARDIS, and she goes, "It's smaller on the outside."
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah.
"Oh, that's clever."
Yeah.
Oh,
I like
shit.
that one. Yeah.
And you immediately like her as a character because you're like, no one else has said that before. And they have this cool like weird
and
sexy
the Doctor's
romance
response,
thing.
he's just like, well, that's not normally the...
Yeah, you've done that wrong.
Yeah.
They have a really great relationship in that, ruined by Moffat later on. But just like
Yeah.
Jenna Coleman's ability as an actress in that show is unparalleled, and her chemistry with Matt Smith is like one of the greatest creative decisions anyone has made at the BBC in a long time.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that they didn't get a whole season together under a different showrunner. But
Well, just a whole season together. I feel like they could have easily carried it.
incredible. Instead of kind of trying to shoehorn Amy and Rory back into the start of the season for no reason.
Oh my fucking god.
Well, I mean, we have to end this episode, but I think that, ostensibly...
We should do it. We should go with Doctor and Companion rankings. I feel like we have...
It'll take us too long now. We might do a part 2 at some point.
Okay.
After you finish the show, because there's more companions you need to meet.
Yeah, true. I think there's one
I think
more.
you've got 2 more. Yeah, you got 2 more, because you got Nardole and you got Bill.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, you should. If you haven't watched Doctor Who, there's some choice. Just like go onto IMDb and filter the list of Doctor Who episodes by the highest rated ones, and just watch the good ones. Midnight, Blink, Forest of the Dead.
Watch the good standalone ones, because you don't need anything
that's
else.
Great.
Just understand that.
Or literally just watch season 1.
Yeah,
because it's one of the better.
Just
seasons.
Understand that the wee does things, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah, it's great.
Just, yeah.
And they even make
That's
it,
all you need to know.
and also like the 50th anniversary. One of the best jokes is John Hurt's War Doctor is like, they're pointing the sonic screwdriver, and he's like, "What are you gonna do? Assemble a cabinet at them?" That's fucking great. I love that fucking episode. But yeah, no, I think Doctor Who should be better, and unfortunately, the new showrunner they've got is dog shit and bad also. So
good.
Yeah, it's not gonna get any better, but
hey, we're gonna keep watching it anyway.
But at least it's a woman, so that's something.
It's a start, yeah.
And Jodie is incredible as an actress.
I think
she's fantastic.
I think she's going to be amazing.
Going to do a great job, and hopefully the show goes in a completely different direction because it desperately needs it. But not like Torchwood did, because that was a bad idea. But yeah, we have to do the part where we do the recommendations for stuff that we've been checking out this week. Ben, what have you bloody got?
I've been playing LA Noire.
Yes, it's a good one.
I don't like Rockstar games. Like I've never enjoyed them.
Yeah,
but being able to play LA Noire as a strictly linear detective puzzle narrative game, it's basically a better Telltale game.
Yes, it is.
With like actual interactivity and like some, little combat bits here and there where it's
but
like
pretty brief.
Yeah, but it's combat. It's it's what Rockstar's good at, but because you just get little bite-sized of it.
Nice. You never get sick of it.
Yeah. I don't drive anywhere. I get my partner to do all of
Fuck
that. 'Cause
that
fuck
shit.
driving.
I just want to sit there and listen to him chat.
I just want to walk around, fucking flip clues around, look at dead bodies. It's great. It's a grand old time. I'm going through
Ben's dream.
Yeah, I'm currently at the second desk, so I'm going through
It's Homicide the second?
Homicide.
Yeah.
And then I get
Nice.
Vice, and then
Ooh, Vice is
Arson?
good. Arson's crazy.
Yeah.
That is the escalation, yeah.
Vice is no, sorry, not Vice. Yeah, the current one. It's definitely getting into like the intrigue and like
the corruption stuff is fascinating.
and like the stuff where it's just like, why do they all have the same size shoe?
I know. A lot of that stuff
And
is
it just
fucking
starts
good.
getting infuriating.
I
'Cause
know.
You're like, just like, there's something bigger.
Something is up here.
There's something's going on.
The game is so good. If you haven't played it, fucking play it.
And it's the kind of thing where like I might go back and play some of the other Rockstar games if the stories are these good.
I mean,
If
GTA
I
5
can
is,
just-
but you have
if-
to avoid the open world.
That's the thing. Because I fucking hate the open world of Rockstar
Wait, have you played
games.
Red Dead?
No, I know that's why I need. I do have it. I do have Red
You can
Dead.
fast travel all over the place. in
Yeah,
Red
so
Dead.
I might go back to Red Dead because
It's good.
that's sort of similar in LA Noire where it's
Yeah, yeah.
different. And then maybe I'll do GTA 5 when it's cheap.
I wouldn't bother.
Maybe I'll do the GTA 4 stories. They're apparently decent.
I actually really like GTA 4's base
Gaytonian
game, to be honest. I think
and,
the base game story is way better than any of the DLCs. That's just me.
Who knows? Then maybe I'll redo San Andreas because that game is the best GTA
Pretty good.
game.
Definitely fucking Red Dead. That's one of
Yeah.
the best games of all time. I've been so busy this week. I did replay Halo 4 though, which was good. It's
a fun one.
One of my favorite Halo. It's actually my favorite Halo game, which I know is sacrilege because I'm supposed to say Halo 3.
You meant
but-
to say Halo 3.
But Halo 4's story is so good, and Cortana and Chief's dynamic in that is so good, and it makes me cry every time I finish it. So there's that. I really enjoyed that. Also, Love Season 3 comes out tomorrow when this goes up, so I'll be watching that all weekend when I'm not busy. But yeah, I think that's it. I haven't really been doing much else except working and bloody playing Halo. I think that's it.
Still playing Warframe.
Still playing Warframe. You got a fucking problem, dude.
It is. Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah. But that's the time of the week, Ben. Where can people find us?
Facebook,
DCM Works Social.
YouTube,
YouTube.com/DCMWorks.
Twitter.
At DCM_works. Couldn't get the dot. Someone already had it.
Really?
Yeah. There's a company that's DCM.works. They don't use it. And I've
You should
sent
try to.
them to be like, give it to me, bitch.
Yeah.
But they haven't got back to me. So,
Oh well.
yeah.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/DCMworks, where at the moment we're doing our untitled Road to Infinity War podcast, where each week we watch more of the Marvel MCU until we're up to date. This week's episode hasn't gone up because Patreon just won't post it. I don't know what that's
good.
about, so I'm just dealing with that error currently. But so you might get 2 next week. I don't know. But yeah, each
Double whammy.
Each week, Ben, myself, Ben, and Laura are watching at least 2 MCU films in the
Maybe
lead up
3
to
if we can handle
Infinity
the
War.
pain.
Yeah, with the goal of having watched them by the time that we get there. I'm not excited. I'm already having a hard time with it. Avengers was good, but everything else I'm struggling with. There's too many quirks.
There is. It's only going to get worse, David.
I know.
It's only going to get
But at least-
even quippier.
But we get Guardians on the horizon, and that's a
We
great
get
one.
Guardians on the horizon. Then there's a few
Ooh.
interesting filler ones. We get Avengers 2. Then we get Guardians 2.
Which is a good one. And also
Yeah.
Spider-Man Homecoming, and that's a good one.
And Doctor Strange, which is also a good one.
So, yeah, I don't know. If you want to hear us slowly lose our minds week to week, you can subscribe for $3 a month. You also get access to, I think it's about 37 episodes of other stuff that we've done that's Patreon exclusive, including
fancy.
part 2s for our artist episodes where we go back and we rediscuss something. Some weird stuff that I'm doing with Aaron, my editor, where each week as we're doing work, we record something different. So there's something different going up every few weeks. Our Patreon-only audiobook series Interface, which is a spooky, spooky good time. And big shout out to all our Patreons. Shout out to Yup Kuman, still again to our Patreon this month. So thanks for looking out, doing God's work, and that's just the goddamn truth. So, but as always, I'm at DC on my Hey Pie,
I'm at Literal Citrus.
and we will see you guys next week. It was a very emphatic ending. I didn't mean to do it like that, but it kinda
Yeah,
just
I was gonna tack something on the end, but I figured no, we'll just let the air breathe.
happened. It was very punchy. Yeah.
We'll just let the air breathe.